If you could bow with me in prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for bringing us all here to discuss the business of the city, Lord, and the planning department. We pray for your discernment as topics come up, and we do what's best for this community, Lord. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Okay, may the record state that all commissioners are present except for Commissioner Oliveira and Commissioner Wiebe. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. I'll accept the motion to approve the agenda.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Aye.
Nunless,
Aye.
and Franz.
Aye. Next item, minutes from the previous meeting. Our last meeting was last month, July 12th. If you got a chance to review, we'll take a motion to approve.
Move that we approve the minutes of the July meeting.
Commissioner Sanchez, Nunless,
Aye.
and Franz.
Aye. Okay, moving on. Open up public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wanting to address the commission only on matters not on this agenda. If you wish to do so, please come up to the mic or raise on YouTube and we'll accept your comments. Thank you. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move right into public hearing. We have 4 items tonight. We'll move right into item number 1, temporary land use permit number 18-104, 1-year extension of time. Staff, please.
Okay, temporary land use permit number 18-1-104 authorizes the sale of baked potatoes. There we go. Baked potatoes and roasted corn at the La Hacienda Market parking lot. The original permit was approved in 2018, and to date, staff has and the project has received 3 extensions of time, with the last extension granted on October 12th of 2021. The zoning ordinance limits uses authorized through the temporary land use permit to a maximum of 5 years. If the applicant wants to continue the use beyond the 5th year, they must submit plans for a permanent use that meets development standards. Otherwise, the use has to be removed from the site at the end of the 5th year. The ordinance also does not allow for a new permit to be approved for the same temporary use at the same location once the temporary use permit expires after 5 years. The current extension will be the 5th and final year of the temporary use. The applicant has not submitted plans to establish a permanent facility. So at the end of the current permit, the current operation will need to be discontinued at La Hacienda Market. If the applicant can find a new location for his baked potato and roasted corn stand, he can apply for a new temporary use permit at the new location. To date, staff hasn't received any complaints about the operation, and no public comments regarding the request were received during the public notice period. We recommend that your commission conduct the public hearing, find that the project is exempt from CEQA, and adopt resolution 22-405 approving a 1-year extension of time for the temporary land use permit 18-104 for baked potato and roasted corn sales in the La Hacienda Market parking lot at 315 James Street.
Any questions from commissioners? Thank you, staff. Okay, we'll open up the public comment. If anybody wish to speak in favor or against this item, please do so. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment on this item. Any more questions from commissioners, or we'll entertain a motion? And it sounds like we better go get potatoes or corn if you want them. Great. Okay. A little further down. Have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 22-405 for a temporary land use one-year extension of land use permit number 18-104.
I second it.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Aye.
Nunless,
Aye.
and Friends.
Aye. Okay, item 2, general plan amendment number 21-37 and zone change number 21-70, the Shafter Community Park. Staff, please.
So this is actually environmental assessment 21-242, general plan amendment 21-37, and zone change 21-70, collectively one chapter. This is the location of the Shafter Community Park project at the northwest corner of East Avenue and South Gold Avenue. The park is a two-phase recreation and sports park on 40.4 acres. Again, it's the northwest corner of East Avenue intersection. First phase would occur with various recreational fields, courts, 340 square foot restroom, concession stand, 1,000 square foot storage building, 720 square foot office, and parking areas with 300 total. There would also be a phase 2 where there's an outdoor gym, tennis pickleball courts, kids fitness course, dog park, barbecue area, and a track field. There would also be a 26,725 square foot gym, 1,500 square foot shop, 1,000 square foot restroom, maintenance yard, 2 additional parking areas of another 380 spaces, an access road, basin, a dry well with filtration. And both phases require lighting on 80-foot poles, which require a future CUP application for Shafter Municipal Code. Some of the off-site improvements for this would include connections to our potable water system, which would not be used for irrigation. It would simply be used for potable water purposes. Drinking fountains, sinks, that's something that. Eventual connection to our sewer service. There would be a connection to the Shafter Wasco Irrigation District's irrigation system to supply raw irrigation water to the site. February through November. The reason why it's constrained to those times is because during those times it's the winter seasons, and that's when they're usually doing maintenance on there. There would also be a connection to an existing water well, nearby water well for supplemental water. Well, construction of a gravity sewer. And since the park doesn't benefit from this, but it's along their frontage, the city would This gives you a sense of the project site. Not a very good graphic, but there is a better one in your so this is the 40. As part of a general plan amendment, you have to talk about land use element compatibility. Is the project compatible with the land use element of the general plan? The project, we look through all of the different policies and goals of the land use element of the general plan, and the project is generally consistent with the land use element. There is no requirement that a project has to be 100% consistent with the general plan, but it certainly should be majority consistent with the general plan. The only policy we found to be not consistent with the general plan was policy 9%, which, quote, states that you should ensure that the location, intensity, and timing of coordinated with provision. Currently, water is not available to the site without any capacity. And CEQA mitigation that we have prepared in the MND requires that the applicant prove that water is available year-round and show that. So if you notice the mitigation measures that are in the resolution, there's a lot related to water, essentially proving to us that we have to serve that it actually can get this irrigation. And the last one is the general plan. CEQA, we did this is in regards to environmental assessment 21-242. Prepared a mitigated negative declaration, which is part of the package. We felt was the appropriate level of CEQA review. When doing the initial study, we determined that mitigation impacts could be reduced to a level of less than significant and therefore mitigate. Here are some of the mitigation, just briefly, that were proposed. For biology, there will be pre-construction surveys, if necessary. They find something avoidance and buffer measures, essentially to exclude until, let's say, a kit box, leaves their den, and then there's a point where you collapse that den. And move on. There is also going to be before it starts a workers' break. For cultural resources, in the event that there is some sort of cultural resource, such as some sort of Indian fragments or sabotage, there is a mitigation measure where stop work immediately and curate. Same goes for human remains if for some reason they unearthed previously unknown. Stop work, we inform the coroner, and the coroner makes a determination whether it's historic or if it is not historic. They have to keep it. Very low chance of that happening, but that's just in the event that something does. For geology and soils, there will be the need for an on-site retention basin. And also, if there is paleontological resources such as fossils, again, stop work and curate the fossil if found. And finally, there is the predominant part of the mitigation is technology and water quality. Essentially, whether we're asking as part of mitigation that water and sewer will serve letters from the city are obtained. Irrigation water will serve from SQUID is obtained. Approval of off-site raw water and supplemental water well connection, and the on-site filtration dry well are by the city engineer. The reason why they need an actual filtration system is that the SQUID water is raw water. It's not filtered at all. So they need some sort of filtration system to filter that out, or else you're gonna completely jam up all of your irrigation.
Right.
So they need some sort of filtration. And then we also asked for a year-round irrigation. So that we can understand how they're actually going to get water year-round. And like I said, with the mitigation that was proposed, staff determined that. So with that, our recommendation is to conduct hearing, to adopt resolution 22-402, which adopts the mitigated negative declaration. Recommends the same with the city council. To adopt resolution 22-403, approves general plan amendment number 21-37 to change land use designation from industrial business park public services, and to recommend the same to the city council, and also to adopt resolution 22-404, which approves zone change 21-70 to change the zone classification of the site from industrial and business park to facilities and same. With that, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions of the staff before we open up the hearing?
No, there's a lot to take in there.
Yeah, there's. Looks like they've been working hard.
Yes. The water is a big issue. I mean, there is water.
The water is, the city certainly will supply potable water, but it's a 42-acre site. Given the amount of water that would be needed for
Right.
irrigation of a 42-acre site.
Right.
So, gotta kind of keep that water for urban purposes. You need to find yourself some sort of a supplemental water source. They have the Park District has worked with SWID that improve irrigation water, raw irrigation water that will have to be conveyed to the site. The mitigation then provides a little bit more vigor where we're going to start to develop the site to prove that they actually have obtained water and that it's sufficient to irrigate the site here.
And then Swidwater won't provide from November to February,
Right.
so they wouldn't be able to water anything from that time.
They have the water well
Okay.
as well. They're they have three sources. They've got city potable water. They have Swid water, and they have existing water wells on site that they have to negotiate with the owner. Have a way to pay that water, the well water to the site. So they have enough to overlap when there is that time period from in the winter to water is not being available. Luckily, the winter time is also the winter wet months here, cooler, cooler. So it's not as much of a burden as sales.
Okay. Any more questions, staff, or we can bring up, looks like they have a few people here. We can ask some questions. Good with that? Okay, this time we'll open the public comment portion. So if anybody wishes to speak in favor or against this, please do so now. If somebody doesn't come up, we might just have some questions and ask, who wants to answer questions? Okay, sure. For the record, can you guys just say who's here? Because so we can know what's going on. Yeah, just come up here. I'm sorry. We'll make you the point since you're the man.
Sure, okay. So Philip Menace, District Manager of the Shafter Recreation and Park District. Do I gotta state that I'm a resident or anything?
You put your address, yeah.
Okay, 741, I was gonna say, put my hat on. So 741 Central Avenue.
Perfect. One question I have on this water talk is at your existing location, how much water do you even use November through February? Is your grasses?
So all water that is being used at the complex that Shafter High owns
Yeah.
is all done by Shafter High.
Okay, so,
But on our senior center, we do have sprinklers as well. And I mean, it's on a local well,
yeah.
So.
I'm just wondering if some of the grasses that could be planted on these ball fields are ones that just require very little during that period.
That
You know, they're like dormant grasses
Yeah,
kind of thing.
pretty much, yes.
What's the plan for the existing? It goes back to Shafter High.
So we're on an MOU with Shafter High right now. So we built it, and I think we were on a 50-year lease with them.
Okay,
And that lease went up in 2012.
okay,
And in 2015, we went into a negotiation with setting up an MOU where we have to pay an hourly charge to use those facilities. The ballparks, the two diamonds, and the grass area. So when that goes out of the way, I'm sure the MOU will still be in existence and we will just have our other fields.
so it's an hourly use. So if you're not
Yes.
using it, you don't pay.
Yes, sir.
I see.
Yes, sir.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
Very
Kern
much.
High owns that
Kern High,
facility.
Kern High owns it, but it was a joint agreement or joint built facility together. So
Where does that water come from, the water, that facility?
I believe that there's a water well that is on behind the football field, in between the football field and Central Valley High School. That's the water well that I believe it comes from.
Yeah, it was actually a potable water well, but there was a point where some contaminant was too high. We couldn't get it to potable water quality standards, so it was reworked to be an irrigation well.
So besides the senior center, this would be the only property the rec department actually owns,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So we are very excited for this.
Yeah, no,
And
it
this has
looks
been in
great.
the works for a few years, right?
Yes, since 2016. You're correct, right? 10 years, yeah. Just trying to find it. The main goal was just trying to find a property.
Yeah,
And when the city manager or the previous city manager, Mr. Herbert, was here, we had negotiated on building or finding that area out that way. You know, it's close to city, but it's not too close to give anybody too many headaches with the lighting and everything and the noise that's going to happen out there. So we are very gracious that we found that spot. And we received 2 grants to be able to, you know, to be.
That's
able
what I was
to
gonna
finance.
ask. You have some funding lined up to start
Yes.
this project? That's great. Did
That'll
you,
Pay for that altogether?
Yeah, so the first build of it is 28 acres and that's phase 1. But the whole complex is 42 acres. So the first build is 28 acres. of it.
but you have grants already lined up to do
Yes.
the whole 28?
To do the whole 28, yes.
Oh,
sir.
wow.
So that's the Prop 68, the 8.5 million that we
Okay.
received. So.
That's great.
Do those grants have a time limit? Like when you
Yes.
have to start and finish?
So we actually got some grace period because all this happened during the whole COVID time and so there is a grace period and I believe it's June of 2024, we have to have it built and complete. So
Phase 1.
Yeah,
Phase 1 or
fa-
both?
just phase 1,
Okay.
just phase 1, just phase 1.
Yeah, one of the big pushes for the
One of the big pushes for the MND to get out was, I think that was a kind of a milestone where they
Yeah.
could break free some more money.
Yes.
So we negotiated back and forth and finally came to an agreement on what the mitigation for the MND would be so that we could get it circulated. And once it was circulated, they were then allowed to have a new infusion of money.
Yes.
Wow. That's great.
It's gonna be a good asset for the.
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you feel you can, you're gonna have programs to fill this thing up?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I believe we've outgrown our facility probably about 5-6 years ago. Whenever I was able to take into place, we started doing a lot more activities. And for example, our fall season is consisting of cross country, fall baseball, and our soccer. So we really need those diamonds and
Yeah.
that grass area. So
It's good.
so we're very
It's
excited.
gonna be a neat project.
That's
Yes, it's going to be a big blessing to the
Yes,
city.
it is.
Great. Thank you. Any more questions while we got him here? Thank you. Anybody else speak in favor or against? Anyone online? All right, we'll close public comment. If any more questions of staff or discussion, and we'd entertain a motion.
I don't have any more questions.
I don't have any.
I don't either. It's a very worthy project.
I mean, lighting and noise, like there's a highway in between. this
Yes,
and-
I mean, it's out
Other
there,
than the people, I
out
guess,
there
that are
far
right
enough
there
where
off
the
of
lighting
Lerdo.
and noise shouldn't be an issue.
Have those people been talked to? I mean, they got notices for this, but they didn't.
Yeah, no,
say
no, yeah, we
anything.
noticed the 300 feet,
Yeah.
property owners 300 feet from the site. So just like normal.
Those ones right there on. Lerdo,
Yeah.
got that, okay.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there is Lerdo Highway there. You're in more of a kind of an industrialized area. The CUP for the poles is mostly because that's just required by the Shafter Municipal Code. So it'll be a matter of when this gets further along, they're getting pretty close to site plan review. We would bring forward a CUP to this body to talk about it. But that really is kind of the last little discretionary action. The only reason we didn't do that is because this project actually hasn't been approved. You're recommending approval to the
Right.
council, so it has to be approved by the council. And then once we have an actual park site, and then we can start talking about CUPs on that park site.
Right.
Will all the traffic dump onto Ash? There's no connection out to Lerdo, obviously.
Yes, it would eventually, I mean, you would connect to Ash, but I mean, you could then take Ash out to Lerdo. But yeah, there's not going to be a
Yeah.
direct ingress egress
Right.
off
Off
of
Lerdo
Lerdo.
Highway.
Correct.
I actually did get a call from the Martins. And they were just confused because by the map and thought maybe we were proposing to change their zoning.
Okay.
So when I explained to them that we were just letting them know what was going on, they were fine.
Okay. They might get some balls from some big swingers there at the baseball field.
They're actually kind of looking forward to the perimeter road so that they can come and go from their property from the south side instead of off of Lerdo because they've got teenage drivers and grandchildren. So they're thinking it'll make it really nice because then they can just pull in the back.
So that up at the north is an alley. That's what you're talking about, the
Yeah.
little like frontage road or whatever.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have any connections to Lerdo,
No,
like driveways or
No.
anything like that.
the only future connection to Lerdo will come from Golds
Okay.
Oh, that will. happen.
eventually, yes.
Yeah.
And there'll need to be a signal at Golds.
How will people be stopped from coming off Lerdo to get to this?
The city owns the property that fronts on Lerdo. So if it becomes an issue, the city could fence their property.
I see.
I get, is there gonna be curbing and like gutter work right there north of this complex? I don't know. if
No,
that's-
Kevin
Okay.
doesn't want curb and gutter. He wants it to like be a rolled asphalt kind of thing where eventually that street, from what I understand from Kevin Harmon, the city engineer, is that it'll be a paved road, but he doesn't want curb and gutter to channel the water. So he wants it to, when it drains, it'll drain down back into the park, but it would accommodate some parking on the alley
Okay.
that would be closer to the fields than maybe the parking lots are. But yeah, we have discussed what needs to be done to keep people from cutting across the city's property to get to the park off of Lerdo. And
Yeah.
also from the dirt road that is currently what is Gold's.
Because when you leave, you might.
Yeah. So that could become a problem.
I see. Okay. Anything else, guys?
No.
And just to let you know, I mean, there's still site plan review, which means it'll have to go through site plan review where we would provide,
Sure.
conditions and necessary requirements, including those sorts of requirements.
When do they plan to pave Golds Avenue down through there? Is that, anybody know that?
The portion that's on the park site will be paved as part of the development of the park. The portion that's on the part that the city owns will be up to the city to decide when
When they want to do it?
it gets done.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll entertain a motion.
Vanessa, could you put that motion back on the screen? Please. It's a big, long one.
The recommendation.
The recommendations. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I move that we adopt resolution 22-402 and adopt resolution 22-403 and 22-404 and recommend to the city council that be approved.
A second.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Aye.
Nunless,
Aye.
and Prince.
Aye. Okay. Moving to item number 3, Title 16 subdivision ordinance and Title 17 zoning ordinance revisions.
Code amendments, 102-07, which are changes to titles 16, the subdivision ordinance, and 17, the zoning ordinance. So essentially, the reason why we're bringing these forward, there have been changes in state law regarding accessory dwelling units and accessory dwelling, as well as landscape. Also, part of the reason why we're bringing this in discussions with the building official, who is available to answer any questions if you have any. He's on. We wanted to be consistent. Right now, there were a lot of references to the uniform. Said in reality, we get here, California building codes, and there are just simple revisions changing uniform for consistency. There were also some official requests by the building official. Currently, recreational vehicles allowed in residential setbacks. We also wanted to change the setbacks for garages on reverse corner and reverse corner lots to allow for 20-foot setbacks, essentially so that there would be for cars to park without sort of encroaching onto the sidewalks, sticking out of the sidewalks. And there's also this sort of interesting thing up around the airport area where there is currently a 1,500-foot setback requirement between permanent commercial coaches, temporary coaches that can be placed up in the arterial roadway in certain industrial areas. And what happens is that when it's so rigid like that, if let's say a coach is kind of nested behind something that's sort of partially blocked, it doesn't make much sense to sort of just say, even though it's blocked, you can't have it because of this sort of arbitrary setback. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then there are just some section numberings, over time, the ordinance has changed, numbering gets a little skewed. So we're making some internal renumbering changes for consistency, as well as, to be quite frank, when we did the emergency ordinance that adopted 2-unit projects and apartment splits, I used an old version of the subdivision ordinance. So I actually put it in the wrong place. So this is just moved it into the right place. Completely a mistake on my own, sort of a new planning director that didn't know the ways. So now, have you there, it's okay. So just to kind of give you a sense, ADUs. ADUs are dwelling units with complete independent facilities for one or more persons, or converted existing space on a lot of the primary uses that is converted. And then there are things called JADUs or junior ADUs, which are specific type of conversion of existing space that is contained entirely within an existing single-family residence or attached to one. But have a separate entrance, efficiency kitchen, may include separate sanitation facilities for use of the resident's existing sanitation system, and is no greater than 500 feet in size. This is by state law. These JADUs and ADUs have become state law by numerous bills. There's Senate Bill 13, Assembly Bill 320, Assembly Bill 68, Assembly which allows ADUs and JADUs by right in residential zones spread out by right. There are now no off-street parking requirements for these things. There is no minimum lot coverage or owner occupancy requirements for such things. ADUs can't be manufactured homes. And then detached ADUs cannot exceed 1,200 square feet. Junior ADUs cannot exceed 500 square. So these are changes in law that we are now codifying into our zoning ordinance. This is related to landscaping. This is per Assembly Bill 1164. Essentially, the city shall not prohibit the installation of drought-tolerant landscaping, synthetic grass, or turf on residential properties. They impose reasonable restrictions on the type of drought-tolerant landscaping, provided the restrictions do not substantially increase the cost of installing, effectively prohibit the installation, or significantly impede the installation. So there is language in our proposed changes that address this change in state law regarding drought-tolerant landscaping. Again, I was telling you that a lot of the zoning ordinance references uniform building code. We're changing that to California building code for request of the building official. So Title 7 period requires 10 feet setback for accessory structures. Here's one of the things that is actually more restrictive than the California building code. The California building code actually allows accessory structures to be closer than a 10-foot setback, which is currently our setback requirement is. And let me give you an example. Gossamer Grove, there's a lot of small sites, a lot of small parcels. Some of these people, because of this setback requirement, can't even put in a small storage shed in their backyard. There's simply, you can't meet the setback requirements and get a small storage shed in your backyard. This is more stringent than the California Building Code, which allows, with sometimes the need for firewalls like that. But what the building official is basically saying sort of makes it overly onerous for people on smaller parts. Maybe goals probably smaller, as land values increase, water becomes more scarce. So it seems to make sense to set our zoning ordinance that is consistent with California. That's what this is for. Here are some other official requests. Building official. Allowing RVs, boats, trailers within a residential right of way, provided they do not encroach the right of way. This is similar to what is currently allowed in a lot of municipalities here in Kern County, that's sort of the state. Again, to allow 20-foot front yard setbacks on corner and reverse corner lots for garages, essentially to allow parking in front without encroaching it against the right of way, sidewalks, essentially having your nose stick out. Currently, the setbacks are less, and we would like to make them. And then finally, this is the one regarding those commercial codes. Essentially allowing me on a case-by-case basis to have some deference and some ability, discretion, ability to reduce this minimum buffer between permanent in the industrial area near the airport from its arterials. And again, some of the industrial locations west of Santa Fe and north of Burbank. And then again, section numbers are no longer accurate, and we are changing the recent Title 16 change to sort of chunk the whole language. Not changing language, simply moving that makes more sense. That is essentially the changes that we're requesting for Title 16 and Title 17. Again, our building is available to answer questions. His requests, and it is our recommendation to conduct a hearing and to adopt resolution 20-407 to approve these Title 16 and 17 and recommends the same.
Thank you. I have two questions. The commercial coach, what is that? Like a trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
It's basically one of those temporary coaches
Yeah,
that you can build, you can bring in, a little office, a
Yeah.
little toilet,
gotcha.
that sort of thing. So there's a lot of those commercial
1,500, it has to be.
1,500-foot separation from
Yeah.
Laredo Highway.
The office you work in
Yeah.
was allowed as a permanent installation of
Yeah.
commercial coach because it's over 1,500
Yeah.
feet from Laredo.
Laredo.
But so what we're saying is basically, on it, because sometimes it may not be 1,500 feet,
Yeah,
but it's behind another building. So you're never going to see it anyway. So we just want to sort of have some deference to be able to say, yes, that's the standard, but there's some discretion to maybe
We have an
reduce it.
issue with that down on Santa Fe Way recently, when that,
Yes, we did
Yeah.
a CUP to
Right.
allow one within the 1,500-foot setback.
right,
And Ron, I think, is the only one that was on the planning commission when that was instituted.
Yeah.
And it was in response to the commercial coach that Mission Bank installed at the corner of Laredo and Beach
Yeah.
that we had a difficult time getting rid of once it got there.
gotcha.
One other clarification, the 20-foot setback is for the side yard of a reverse corner lot. So it's a side yard of a lot on a corner is currently 15 feet. This would require the garage to be pushed farther into the lot so that people parking in the garage aren't obstructing the sidewalk and the ADA path. 15 feet isn't even long enough for my Mazda 3 to park in the driveway and not hang over the sidewalk.
Gotcha. And the recreational vehicles, so that means you can just put them in your driveway now. So it's still not on the roads, obviously.
Correct. Yeah, you would allow people to basically put, your recreational vehicles, your boats in the driveway of your house.
As opposed to like a side yard. Right now, you'd have to put it in the side.
Correct.
There's
Correct.
been a lot of,
In the side yard behind the fence.
Behind the
Right.
fence. This would allow it to be,
Outside the setback.
It just couldn't extend to the sidewalk.
yeah, you
into the
couldn't
sidewalk.
encroach into the sidewalk and it'd have to be maintained. I mean, there's still code enforcement. If someone's got a car on cinder blocks, you still can call out code enforcement because it's a nuisance. But essentially, if it's maintained, to allow them to have the ability to place their recreational vehicles, their boats, et cetera, in their driveway. Correct.
Is that a request because that happens a lot and code has to go out there?
It is some of that is, I actually, I'm not going to speak to that. I mean, Dennis is here. He could give you probably better reasonings for why he's requesting that. That would be my
there's
guess.
been a lot of complaints
Yeah.
about people parking in the driveway out in front of their house in that 20-foot setback. People next door can't see.
Yeah, I mean, some of that might be
Yeah,
valid.
yeah, and it might be bad for people backing out of their garage, backing out onto the street might be blocking somebody's view.
Maybe we'll bring Dennis on and ask him. Is he on, Vanessa? Hey.
Yes.
How you guys doing?
Dennis, can you speak to the recreational vehicle item?
Yeah, so I've been with the city for 24 years and it hasn't been proactively enforced at all. Occasionally, if someone has a complaint, and I can tell you, for the most part, people that have like a jet ski or a small trailer, that's probably what it commonly gets used for. And so, yeah, it came up when we had an influx of like 273. Someone turned in like 273 complaints of these vehicles, and yeah, it was a mess for us. So Wayne Clausen, our old planning director, kind of had different department heads look around different jurisdictions and see what the kind of trend was of what everyone else is doing. And I can tell you the majority of them allowed some type of recreational vehicle to be placed in the front yard. The ones that didn't weren't evenly enforced or weren't enforced at all. So like City of Bakersfield, the county, Delano, Visalia, all allowed them to be placed there. It didn't seem to be a problem. And right now, currently in City of Bakersfield, you can place any recreational vehicle there. Now, like Mr. Eselman said, there's still code enforcement there. So if someone's not properly licensed and maintained, if it's weeded, if it's a hindrance to line of sight or something like that, we would still address it. I think we would just have some allowance for kind of doing what we've done in the past, to be honest.
So anything like that's going to be enforced by our code enforcement officer, right?
Yes, typically that would be the case.
So there would still be a way for something to be done if a vehicle was blocking somebody's line of sight to cars coming down the road where they couldn't back out of their driveway safely.
Yeah, of course, that's always the case. And it's no different than having a big pickup truck or something like that. Obviously, if it blocks the line of sight, we want it addressed. So kind of one of the concerns like that we're requesting to have a longer driveway for the reverse corner lots, so we can adequately park there, and then hopefully have 5 to 10 feet beyond that where as someone's backing out, they can see. So you won't always necessarily be right up next to the sidewalk, but some may, and if it does become a line of sight, we could address it.
Is there any reason to put any sort of, size restriction on these? Because we just kind of have a blanket list of items there, and we all know that travel and or camp trailers can vastly vary in size from small to very large. I just see if you, like you were saying in Bakersfield, I've seen where giant fifth wheels are right in the front yard. And that just seems like it could be a line of sight issue potentially.
Well, one thing I would say, the actual language says, outside storage areas associated with residential storage of personal recreational vehicles, boats, travel trailers, camp trailers, etc., within a residential driveway located within a front yard setback is allowed, provided that the vehicle does not encroach onto the public right of way, i.e. sidewalks or streets, and is maintained or properly licensed. So there is the provision that you have to stay on your property. So if you're so big, you're hanging out over into the sidewalk, well, you're not meeting municipal code, and that's a code violation.
And the front yard setback in town is 25 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, and keep in mind, a residential neighborhood should have residential vehicles, not anything that's commercial related. So anything basically over 11,500 pounds wouldn't be allowed anyhow.
Okay. Any more questions for Dennis? Thank you, Dennis. Mr. Fiddler.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's open the public comment section on this item. If anybody would like to speak in favor or against, please do so now. Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment and open it back up for any discussion, or we'll entertain a motion. No questions.
I'll make a resolution or a motion to adopt resolution 22-407, improving revisions to Title 16 and 17 and recommending the same to the city council.
A second.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Aye.
Nunless,
Aye.
and France.
Aye. Okay, item 4, zone code amendment number 22-15, adoption of new official zone map. Hand it back to staff.
Hey. Here we go. Zone Code Amendment 22-15 is a request to adopt a new official zone map for the city of Shafter. Shafter, just a little bit of history. Shafter was an early adopter of zoning regulations, and the city council first adopted a zoning ordinance and a zone map for the city in 1946. In comparison, the first zone map Kern County adopted for the area around Shafter wasn't adopted until 1970. The 1946 ordinance identified areas for residential, commercial, and industrial uses and had a very limited number of development standards, one of them being commercial buildings couldn't be built out of corrugated metal. And houses had to meet the fire codes. At the time, the incorporated part of the city included the original township, some residential and commercial industrial areas located mostly within a quarter of a mile of the west and south side of the township boundaries, and a small area of residential development north of Tulare and another east of Mantle over to Cross Street. An updated zoning ordinance and zone map were adopted in 1956, and at that time, the city had grown in all directions with primarily residential development. At the time of adoption, residential neighborhoods were being developed east of Mantle Park to Beach Avenue, west of Shafter Avenue to Schneid Street, south of Lerdo to Los Angeles, and north of Tulare to Redwood Drive. At that time, Shafter High, the Richland School Complex, and Golden Oak Elementary had all been annexed into the city. One of the interesting things I found in the 1956 zoning ordinance was an emphasis on residential growth. It actually stated that any property annexed into the city was automatically zoned R1, which is the smaller lot, single-family residential zoning, unless a specific action was taken to change it to annex it as something different. The 1956 ordinance was very similar to current zoning ordinances and the same kind of listing of land uses and development standards. Updated zone maps were adopted in 1966 and 1976 that reflected additional growth in the city. And in 1989, the city adopted a new zoning ordinance as Title 17 that replaced the one that was originally adopted in 1956. In 1992, the city annexed approximately 4,400 acres and expanded the corporated boundaries south to Riverside and east to Highway 99, including Minterfield Airport and property within a half-mile of the south side of Lerdo Highway. In 1995, a new zoning ordinance was adopted as well as a new zone map, and those are the documents that we still use today. Since 1995, the city has approved 59 zone changes and annexed approximately 15,000 acres of land, and we have yet to update the zone map. So several years ago, when Wayne was still here, he tasked me with researching the history of the zoning in chapter, and at the same time, we started transitioning our zone map from a paper map or maps, we actually had two, to the GIS system that we use now. So all of this information has been converted into an electronic format, and it represents many, many years of my time researching and verifying that all of the zoning that is depicted on this map matches what the city council has approved in the past. I've dug through minutes of planning commission meetings. I've read through all of the city council minutes. I've read all the ordinances, compared all the maps that were adopted, and made sure that on a parcel by parcel basis, made sure that all of the zoning matches what the city council has approved in the past. And what we are proposing does not include any changes to anything. We're just essentially converting our paper maps onto the electronic format. Once, hopefully, this map is adopted, the GIS coordinator will post this on the chapter website so that the public will have access to it. That will make our lives as planners much easier because people will be able to self-serve, and then if they have additional questions, they'll be able to contact staff for guidance. I would greatly appreciate I think I wrote the first staff report for this adoption of the map in 2016, and I've been amending it ever since. And I finally had a chance to finish the parcel by parcel check, and we've gotten it all to where it needs to be. So staff recommends that your commission conduct the public hearing, find the project is exempt from CEQA, and adopt resolution 22-406, recommending that the city council approve zone change amendment number 22-15, repealing the existing official zoning map that was adopted under ordinance 465 and approve a new official zoning map for the city of Shafter.
Thank you. So this is the Suzanne Forrest audit of.
Yes,
the zone.
it is. It
Yes.
is. Wayne didn't have time.
Awesome.
Yeah, there was many hours.
Yeah.
She's been telling me about this since I showed up a year ago. She's been working on this. So it's been a
I
while.
literally read every single minute for every single planning commission meeting, because before the laws were changed that required approval of pre-zoning as an official act of the council, zoning was approved for annexed properties through the planning commission. And the only place it appears is in the minutes from those hearings. There's no resolution, there was no ordinance, no nothing. But it was interesting. It was interesting to learn. I learned a lot about the history of Shafter and how it grew, and how a lot of the stuff was annexed after it was built. So that's why there's some really strange things that go on the south side of Lerdo.
Gotcha.
Because those were all built in the county. And I was kind of surprised that zoning was adopted in 1946 here, because, you know, I worked at the county for a long time, and the first zoning adopted in the county, the zone maps weren't adopted until 1970. And that's pretty consistent. I think the ones in Taft are from 72. So Shafter has been.
They're
Leader.
ahead, yeah. Okay. History lesson too, yeah. Any questions?
Yes, how does this alternate dwelling unit and junior dwelling units, how does that affect this zoning?
Well, in any R1 zone, you can, by right, have ADUs and JADUs, so long as you meet the objective standards that we just recommended to the city council.
Well, any residential zone.
Yeah.
R1,
Yeah, right.
multifamily,
R2, R3.
yeah, the law says that we have to allow ADUs as part of multifamily developments too. Which is kind of strange.
That is, that's what.
Yeah, we're slowly losing our local land use control to the state.
Looks like we already lost.
Yeah.
So if we adopt this map, does this affect anyone that's purchasing property with intended use of something else right now? Or do they get kind of grandfathered into what the old zoning was?
We're not proposing to change any zoning.
Okay,
This is just what the council has previously adopted. We're re-adopting essentially their previous decisions. If somebody wants to come in and change zoning on a piece of property, they would go through the normal process of applying for a zone change and if appropriate, a general plan amendment, because those two things need to be consistent. And then they would forge ahead from there.
Okay.
So it would be a similar process to what Shafter Rec and Parks is doing in changing their zoning to from an industrial and business park zoning. It's kind of split zoned those parcels to the community facility and public services facility designations.
This is just establishing what has already been approved.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
More questions, guys? Okay. Did I open up public comment on this? Okay, we'll open up public comment on this item. Please speak in favor or against. Do so now. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move that we adopt resolution 22406 and recommend to the Shafter City Council to approve the zone code amendment number 2215, repealing the existing official zoning map of the city of Shafter adopted under ordinance number 465 and approving a new official zoning map of the city of Shafter as illustrated in Exhibit A.
I'll second.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Aye.
Nunless,
Aye.
and France.
Aye. Okay. That ends the public hearing and we have commissioner reports, I believe. Anybody have anything to report?
You know, a request was sent out if we wanted to go to this training session down south. And it said on that paper that shortly there'll be one up in this area for Kern County. Should we wait for that one or?
It really isn't, it depends on your timing. If you know you can make that one, certainly please make that one. If not, I can research when the Kern County one is happening.
Well, it said it would be next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just said to be determined on the date.
Okay.
I didn't know if you'd rather us wait to go to.
I'm more than happy to allow you guys to go anytime you would like. And, more education, getting to understand your role as a commissioner is something I think is very important, and I'm more than happy to support helping you achieve that. Unless there are any other commissioner reports, I just wanted to quickly introduce Mitzi Kushum, who is our new senior planner. She is currently working closely with Suzanne to sort of get herself up to speed. We're very happy that she's here. We're doing some successional planning right now with Suzanne and Mitzi. And she has done an excellent job here in the first 2 weeks that she's been here. She's absorbing a lot. She's sharp. And we're really happy to have her.
Good. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm sure she's glad that Suzanne's audit is done and fast.
Yes, she told me what she had to do, and I was like, "Well, did you finish?" She's like, "Staff report is done."
Here you go. It's 80% done. I know.
Yeah.
We should have not approved it, so you had to stay.
Culmination.
Our GIS coordinator who's been trying to get this done so you can post the map. for the last 5 or 6 years.
Gotcha. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move that we adjourn.
Second.